Hi, and welcome to this edition of Let's Chat with Derick. I am your host, Derick Fage. What I love about this show is we can really take a deep dive into finding out more about the person that we think we know. Sometimes, we see them and they're doing incredible things, but where did they come from? What inspired them to become the person they are today? And I am really pleased to introduce today's guest. She is a professional photographer, a Nikon ambassador, and a Canadian Geographic photographer in residence. I am talking about Michelle Valberg. She joins us on the show today. How are you, Michelle?
I'm awesome, Derick. Thanks for having me. And how are you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks. It's so nice to see this background. I mean, it's no better place to have an interview with you than you having some nature in the background. I imagine you're up there in cottage country.
I am. I'm up at Sherwood Lake. Actually, I was thinking I would take my kayak out and do the interview from the middle of the lake, but I thought that might be a little sketchy. So here I am.
Oh, it's great to have you. And as I said off the top, it really gives us a chance and our viewers a chance to get to know you. So I want to find out a little bit about where you were brought up, a little bit about your childhood. Take me back to your childhood and tell me a little bit about growing up and where you grew up.
I grew up in Ottawa. I'm one of those kids. And I think, Derick, you are too, right? That you grew up and live in
Yeah,
Ottawa? I know. I've
that's
lived
right.
in Ottawa my entire life, which is super cool, and I'm so proud. And I feel blessed every day to live in the city of Ottawa and close to my family. And yeah, it's been a blessing to grow up here. I was the West End kid though. Like back in that
Okay.
day, it was the East and the West, right? And
Yeah.
anyway, I was West End. I was a West End kid, so I went to Woodruff High School. And then I went to
Hey, so did
Algonquin. No,
I.
sorry. You went to Algonquin?
No, I went to
Woodruff.
Woodruff. Well, I did a bit of a tour, kind of a tour of schools. That's a long story. Dropped out of high school a few times. School and we didn't really connect very well. I finally did
No.
graduate, but yeah, I graduated from Woodruff. But I went to Nepean, I went to Fisher Park, I went to Ashbury. I did a bit of a tour.
Oh, that is quite the tour. And you probably went to Woodruff for the last semester, right? That's typically what we
That's
had, or
exactly
we
right.
went back. Yeah, yeah, for grade 13, probably. Uh,
Yes. Yeah,
Anyway.
exactly. So
Back
tell
then.
me about
We're
before high school. I mean, growing up, what was I know you have this abundance of love and appreciation for nature. Where did that come from? Was that part of your childhood?
Yeah, my parents were very, very much into exploration, adventure, seeing our country. We went from east to west. They were birders, like serious, serious
Okay.
birders. And, that is kind of where they sparked my interest, I guess. And then I married Scott, and then we came to the lake, and I was just even more immersed. And then I started doing photography in the north, in the Arctic, and everything just kind of evolved. And now it's like my salvation, being out. I was out at
Yeah.
6 o'clock in the morning. I have my Westboro crew up here, and just to be on the lake and be in silence and with the birds, and we had an otter and a merganser family of they were 16
Nice.
babies. Yeah. So you
Wow.
just can't get, yeah, I know. And they were big. Like it's not like they were little anymore. So they were quite good size, which means she's a pretty good mom when she can keep 16 merganser babies together. So there might have even been 17, but yeah, so I've always been, but I really wanted to be a golfer. Like that was my
Really?
plan. I wanted to be a golf pro. I grew up and I was somewhat competitive as a kid, and that was my passion. And that again, right? You're out in the green space in the forest most of the time. Hopefully not with your ball, but you're walking in this beautiful, beautiful space. And yeah, so then I decided I wanted to be a photographer, and I came home and I remember telling my dad that I wanted to be a photographer, and he asked me what else I wanted to be. He's like, "Oh, that's great. What else would you like to do?" Because there's no way on earth that
So
you're going to make a living at photography.
right, what derailed your golf aspirations, your golf career?
Well, my plan was hopefully to go down to the US on a scholarship of some sort, but then my father gave me his camera, his Nikon camera, and I took it
Okay.
out and I came back and I said, okay, now I want to be a photographer. And then I never looked back. And I took maybe 5 pictures. I just knew that that's what I wanted to do. And I see that happening daily, with people who are, picking up cameras or with their cell phones. And, people are exploring and taking more pictures than obviously ever before because it's just in your hand all the time. So it's been
Yeah.
a great thing to watch, this evolution of photography and the interest of people and how it's growing.
So, yeah, walk me through that journey. So, you borrow your dad's camera, you take a few pictures, you get inspired. Where do you go from there? Do you start taking workshops, courses?
Yes. Yeah. So that's exactly. My dad said, okay, Michelle, go and take a course to make sure that it's what you wanted. So I did a night course at Algonquin and I was right, I was the semester system too. So, less courses. I had the second semester off. So I went to Algonquin, the night school, and then I was like, yeah, I'm hooked. And then my father came back and said, Ottawa U has a fine art program. So I wanted a university education. I wanted to study photography. So I went to Ottawa U for a couple of years. And I realized that I wasn't probably going to get the technical training that I wanted or needed to start my own business. And I knew that that was what I wanted to do as well. I was bound and determined to be my own boss and my own photographer and my own business and everything else. And, looking back though, I think it would have been really a little bit smarter to go work for someone and kind of get, the idea of what business would be like, but no, and then I went to Algonquin for 2 years and then finished my education there. And it was a wonderful blend between the fine arts and the technical training that I needed to have to be a photographer. So, yeah. And then I started my business throughout university and I started videotaping when people weren't videotaping because there was no access. Like we went from 8mm and 16mm, then 8mm film to, Super 8 and 8mm. And, um, yeah, it was not too many people were in the position of kind of the middle ground. It was either really, really basic or else, TV production, which was like hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
So I self learned, and I think to do what you love every day and to have a career in the creative arts, you kind of have to live and breathe and work it, and just a lot of it was trial and error and just believing. I had to believe in myself, and I was very, very young. You're a young 19-year-old and you're trying to talk people into the fact that you can actually videotape their wedding or their special event, and that they had trust in you. And meanwhile, they're off. Well, everyone was older than me. So, young woman in a male dominated field, it
Hmm.
wasn't an easy process. That's for sure. We're talking 30 years ago. So
Yeah, yeah. So, how
30
did you? I
plus.
mean, you mentioned the business side, Michelle. You know that's a difficult thing for a lot of people that are in the arts, and photography is
Hmm.
very artistic. That business side, how did you end up growing your business? Because being a photographer, that's one of the biggest things you have to do. How did your business grow from there?
It's that is such a great question because people often will say, "How do I get a career in photography?" And giving back has always been a huge part of my life and my world, and from my parents to just this tenacious need to give back somehow. So I started to do projects. Like I did a book on HIV and AIDS. I had no idea what it was like to do a book. I always gave back to the hospitals, to women's organizations like St. Joe's, and then CHEO, the Ottawa Hospital, Queensway Carleton. So I started to get involved in the community. And then I started to be asked to go on boards. And then I was, connected to the community leaders. We've sat on a board together. And it's
Yeah,
amazing what, that exposure, but also as a small business and you're just trying to make a living and, work 12, 14 hours a day, most days, and, to keep your head above water. Um, so having that exposure to other community leaders from all walks of life, from presidents of companies to people like you in the media, all walks, the exposure and the learning process that helped enable me as an individual in business, but then also the connections that offered as well, the connectivity to the community. And then you became the go-to almost. And I donated tons of my work to silent auctions. And, so it was a huge part of building the business and in maintaining and growing your community uh, um, connectivity, but also, using those connections to help build your career.
Yeah, building relationships
And then there's a lot.
is everything, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And you're not
I
giving, I never went with the intention. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I never did it with, you never do it with the intention of when you're giving that you're going to get anything in return. It's for, it's all the other way, but in giving, you do receive for sure. So it's been a huge part of my career.
So your career has transformed obviously over the years. So from those beginning, you mentioned doing the weddings and videography and so forth. I know nature's always been a part of your life, but when did that become a big part of you as a professional photographer?
Well, everyone graduates and thinks that they want to be a Nat Geo photographer. I want to go work for National Geographic. And that's like, being the top 6 in the NHL in the world. And of course, that would have been my wonderful goal in the future. But I knew I had to make a living at photography. And that meant doing whatever it was that I had to do to make a living. And, saying yes to the first pamphlet that the Ottawa Senators put out and, all their stuff. Can you do a catalog? I had no idea how to do a catalog. And you just take every possible opportunity that comes your way. And I self-learned. I knew I had to, and you make mistakes and you move forward and you learn and you grow. And it was just staying committed. And then every time I could, I would go out and photograph in nature, which wasn't a lot of time because I was doing, like, at one point we did 115 weddings a year. I had 13 people working for me, 115 weddings a year. Yeah, it was crazy.
Amazing.
And then, transforming, having young women photographers come in, trying to build their career, trying to build more business. And then, eventually just an opportunity came. I had a child. And then, a couple of years after that, I was like, okay, I want to do a book on Canada. And then I wanted to show what we have in Canada and what we have to lose if we don't take better care of our planet. And I wanted it to be about the environment and conservation. And I'm not an environmentalist. And so it comes from just a visual representation of just what we have in this incredible country that we live in. And so I decided I was going to do a book on Canada. And then I said, I have to go up to the north and see polar bears. And somehow I, found this guy who lived up in Pond Inlet. I called him. We talked for an hour and a half, and he's now one of my best friends. And I've been to the Arctic 60 times since. So,
wow.
Back, when we're typically online all the time, right? You just pick up the phone and you actually have a conversation.
That's amazing. And tell me about that experience, going back 60 times. Obviously, something drew you to continue to go back there. What's that experience for those of us that have never visited up north? And when you're talking up north, I mean, you're talking, you're way up
the
north.
Arctic.
What's it like? Yeah, what's it like up north?
When I think before I went up to the Arctic, I thought it was flat, white, and cold, really. I didn't,
Right.
I don't remember learning about the Inuit and life in the Arctic. It was just kind of like above there, and it was cold. And I knew polar bears lived there, but I had no idea about the Inuit and the landscape and how diverse it is from, east to west, and the mountains and the incredible glaciers and the icebergs. But it was the people, I think, that intrigued me so much. And I had developed wonderful relationships and with the people. So when I did my book, it transformed from Canada, and I went up to the north and I said, well, I need to tell everybody about the north because I don't know about the North, and I'm sure a lot of people don't know about the North. So I need to bring the North to the South and do my book on the Arctic. So then the Arctic became my clear focus. And when I made that phone call, it was also the right timing for the companies that I ended up working for. They were looking for imagery, and they believed in me. And I think that it was
Yeah.
not just that I was a professional photographer, and of course I was specializing in portraits at that point only, and they took a chance on me. But it was also because I was giving back. So they were like, "Oh, you're perfect." And then I had my first taste of standing on the flow edge, which is where the ice ends and the open water begins, and you're in the middle of nowhere on the top of the world, and no one around you for miles and miles, and you see narwhal and bowhead and seals and 100,000 birds on a cliff, and then my first polar bear, and it just is like I can't leave here. How do I come back? As soon
Yeah.
as I left, I was like, how do I come back, and how do I make this a part of my life? And then fortunately, right, it's all about networking and communicating and relationships, as you said. And how am I going to make this? How do I get this part of the world into my life? And how I can go back it
Well,
became my passion.
yeah, and travel's beginning again. But before we get to that, because I know you have some travel plans coming up, but before we get to that, the a global pandemic hits and you're no longer able to travel. Did that give you an opportunity to sort of stay at home and discover what was in your own backyard?
And I anytime that I wasn't traveling, I was on the kayak on the lake, or out whenever I could. But what I've been able to see these last 2 summers being here is the transition and this growth, or more of a story, because I'm not coming and leaving. I can be more immersive. So my backyard, I discovered a lot of the area around Ottawa as well. I had people calling me or emailing me and saying, "Hey, there's a nest here, or there's a fox den here, and we'd love to go shoot with you." So I gained new relationships and new friendships, which is awesome. And then when I was here on the lake, I saw, I had a horrible loon drama story. I was so excited because they were on their nest and it wasn't far from our cottage, and that they were successful babies. And then that transformed into a story, but I was able to immerse myself in it and document it. So not in pieces, but
Right.
in more of a whole story. And same with the blue heron rookery. It was the same thing. I just kept going back. So I saw these little heron nests, heron rookery. It was a smaller rookery, but I saw it from when they were in the nest and low, the parents, to when they were little babies, to when they fledged. I mean, that's been the most awesome part about the pandemic, is that, staying close to home, being with my family, and discovering more of our own backyard.
Well, speaking of that, then you also did a black and white series called Planet Hope. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, when we were in lockdown, I felt compelled as a storyteller. Derick, I know you can totally relate to this, of course. And I was just like sitting there going, I'm a documentary, and like I document time, and history was going in warp speed, and I wanted to document. So I went downtown, and I ran into Mandy Gosowich, who owns her store in the market, and
Hmm.
we just kind of looked at each other. It was early morning, and we looked at each other and we just started crying, because we just had no idea as business owners what this meant. And we're standing there with masks, and, just really sadness. And I asked her if I could take her photo. And I did this portrait. And then I came back, and then I said to my husband, who was a fire chief at the time, can I come and photograph and document how you're responding to calls? Because without their masks, like they didn't have N95 masks, they were going in their full gear. And I wanted to show how they were going and responding to medical calls during a pandemic. And then I photographed Sarah, and then I just said, okay, I have to make this a series and tell more stories, because so much is unfolding while we're all sitting at home and where we were supposed to be. But I felt I did it very safely and quietly, and I just wanted to, document what was happening, not only here, but around the world, of course. So all kinds of people, from medical professionals to reporters to, business owners, people who were making a difference, like Sharon House, who was, serving the elderly. And
Yeah.
Sheila White, and so many people were doing extraordinary things.
No, I couldn't agree more. So are you spending a lot of time then in studio these days as well?
Yeah, so back in the studio, yeah. Now I didn't for the number of months that we were in lockdown, but once everybody could get their grooming done, then the emails started to come. Okay, I got my hair done. I'm coming, for a portrait. So yeah, I've been hugely busy and photographing some amazing people. Oh my goodness. And I'm just loving seeing the young, dynamic businesswomen coming in and yeah, working in the all kinds of fields. And yeah, it's been awesome. The men too, but I've been really taken by the young women, the young, strong
Yeah.
women that are coming in.
Well, I know you don't necessarily like to pat yourself on the back. You're a very humble person, but you have won some major awards. You've won recently, I think it's 3 major awards. One of them, the Picture International Photography Award. Tell me about that award.
Yeah, it was super cool. There's such extraordinary images out there, and this was a wildlife competition, international, and they were really trying to encourage women photographers to enter. And I entered Boss, and Boss is my spirit bear shaking. He's done me very proud. I had an
Yeah.
incredible opportunity to photograph the spirit bear up in Great Bear Rainforest. So he won me the Terrestrial Wildlife Award, which is super proud because it's
Okay.
international too, right? And
Right.
then another award right at the same time came to me, and it was the Julia Margaret Cameron Award for Women Photographers. And again, I studied Julia Margaret Cameron when I was in
Really?
university. And just to be amongst these incredible women. And, often it's about portraits, and it's not always wildlife photographers that are receiving that kind of award. So super proud about that. And then I just found out last week that Ottawa Life named me as one of the top 10 visual artists of the city. So I'm pretty proud about that. Yeah.
No kidding. Congratulations. That's amazing. I
Thank
mentioned
you. Thank
just
you.
you're welcome. Just a few minutes ago, I mentioned, travel and how important that is to you. I know you love to travel. You love going on adventures, meeting new cultures. Travel's starting to begin again. What are your plans as far as travel goes?
Well, I'm going to Iceland. I'm circumnavigating Iceland. I'm leaving September 9th. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. I mean, I was supposed to go to Norway, Iceland, Greenland, Africa twice, Greece, Japan. I don't know. There were a number of other opportunities that I have lost over the last 18 months. So fingers crossed. I travel as a resource photographer, so I'm like a photo coach. And then when I get back from that, about a week later, I have a couple of photo tours to Chilco, which is in British Columbia, and it's to see the grizzly bears and the eagles and the
Okay.
beautiful mountains. And yeah, so super excited about that. So Iceland, my
Yeah.
grandparents were born there, so it's kind of, my homeland. Yeah.
Have
So
you
we
been
circumnavigate.
before?
Yeah, yeah. So I've actually done the circumnavigation already before, but
Okay.
this one is with a different company, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to go back and maybe visit the volcano too. It started to erupt again, I understand. So hopefully, I'll be able to go and see that on my last day there as well. So yeah, super excited. It's kind of hard to believe that it's going to happen again.
Yeah, no kidding. And I know it's important for you to connect people to nature. I wonder if you've seen something that I've personally seen during the pandemic is that people seem to have gained a greater appreciation of nature. It was interesting because before a
Hmm.
pandemic, so many people are, attached to their screens and, whether it's television or their phone or their tablet or their computer or their video game playing. But soon as we go into a global pandemic, everyone goes, "Wait a minute. I've got to I've got to get outside." And I've seen people, I live across from the river, so I've seen people, on paddle boards and stand up paddle boards and kayaks and canoes and people walking their dogs and biking like I've never seen before. Do you think that could be one good thing I mean, they're probably more than just what, but one of the good things that could come out of this pandemic.
Absolutely. I think the people's connection to nature, I think we're deficit. We're in a nature deficit
Yeah,
disorder.
yeah,
And I think we have to understand what we have to lose if we don't take care of our planet, and I think that connection, it can also be really great for your mental health and your well-being, just to get out of the city and to be on the water or be close to nature, or go for a walk in a path, and get off of our screens. So many
yeah,
people are on their screens, and have maintained, even more so being on the screens like this, that we're not doing this in person. But yeah, I think it's really good for the soul, and it's good for the environment. And I think if more people are understanding how beautiful it is out here and what we have to lose, I think that they'll be more connected and maybe more committed to, making a difference maybe in their lives of recycling, or, water consumption, or whatever it might be that you could do to help the planet. Because as you know, it's on fire or underwater, or there's
yeah.
so much happening. hmm So I sit here and
For
I'm in the one of sorry.
No, sorry. Finish your thought. No, go ahead.
We sit here. I'm sitting here in my little paradise, knowing how many people are suffering right now. So it's you have to remember that as well. Obviously, that we're so lucky to live where we live. hmm
Yeah, I feel the same way as you. I'm, very grateful that my wife and I have a cottage ourselves that we can go out and enjoy nature, unlike, so many people around the world. And as you said, we can think of ourselves as, here in Canada, but there are developing countries in the world who are still, and will continue to suffer greatly. Not just because of the pandemic, but
hmm
that certainly has made it even more difficult on so many people.
hmm
Uh, my last question to you is for those people, and I'm not even talking about photography, but for those people that are, looking to get into any kind of business, and all the challenges and obstacles that are in their way. What's your advice to people, and especially young women, as you've already mentioned?
You have to live and breathe it, and live and breathe it, and live and breathe it. You have to stay committed. You have to work really, really hard. It does not come easy. Every year that goes by, I think, okay, this is it, and then a pandemic happens, or, whatever it might be, that, I have a bad back, or, there's stay committed, and also very, very confident in yourself, and understand that you're doing the best that you can do, and that you're good at what you do, and that's why you're doing it. And just work really hard, and be passionate, and live it and live it and breathe it. I can say that over and over again, but it has to be almost like all consuming, right? It's like your career. I
Yeah,
mean, you've committed to this, and you'll do anything, and have done, numerous opportunities to move ahead and to build, and you're constantly reinventing yourself. As we move through these changing times, we have to also remember that we have to change with it too, as our
yeah.
clients start to change, as our demographic, as technology changes. Oh my goodness, right?
Thank you so much for spending time with us. Really appreciate it. Want to send everybody to your websites, michellevalberg.com. You can also visit valbergimaging.com and find her on social media. This has been the latest episode of Let's Chat with Derick, with your host, Derick Fage, and we'll see you next time.